feel like I'm at Tom Nook's on Tom Nook's shop or the Tom Nook from Animal Crossing.
All right. So, let's see how this looks. Hello, everybody. This should be working now, I think. All right. So, okay. Well, it looks like it is going to show people's like login or your off-screen picture anyway, so that's fine. Whatever, we can work with it. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us on this lovely Monday and stuff. To get started, hopefully everybody has a beverage, some water, or something along the lines.
Water, actually.
Water's good. I personally myself chose a slightly more adult beverage, but that's fine.
Like rum and what is it you do?
Rum and orange juice.
Orange juice.
Because that's the easiest thing, and I feel like because it's orange juice, it is less, terrible for me than doing like rum and coke, which is my usual go-to in most situations. But I tried that actually on Saturday night. I tried drinking some rum and Dr. Pepper, and I made the mistake of doing that at like 11:30 at night, because then I didn't go to bed until about 4 in the morning because I was like so hyped up and like caffeine. But yeah, we won't go to that. All right. Well, thank you for coming and hanging out with me, Josh. It means a lot. It means a lot. Okay. What? Speak up. Speak up, boy.
Oh, is it not?
No, yeah, we were talking. Well, it's also, you just have this tendency of like talking really quietly because you're a soft-spoken individual.
My mic also keeps going out.
Oh, see, now I hear you way better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just duct tape it like that, and you will be fine.
Just doing it right.
See, there you go. Now, but you like to talk to yourself. It's fine. I understand. You're just a soft-spoken individual, and it's just like, Well, thank you, Sonder/Josh, for joining us. I am going to be trying to pay attention to people who send comments and whatnot our direction. And we'll see how this goes, because this is going to be my first time. All right. Well, so you've been playing D&D for a little bit then. How long have you been playing now? I guess all things considered.
It's been almost a year now.
A year?
I think it's been a year.
Well, not with us, but like even before that. Has it been just a year?
Just playing D&D?
Yeah, in general.
No, I started playing D&D back when I worked at Toyota. Yeah, I started playing D back when I worked at Toyota, and my friend, one of the leads there, had got me into it, and I was interested. Like, I've always been interested in role-playing games.
Yeah.
But this was a different experience, and I didn't know much about D&D besides. Is it cutting in and out?
No, you're fine.
No. I didn't know much about D&D besides that. It was like the game Stranger Things.
Oh yeah. Okay, now you cut out again.
Cut out again.
Yep, there you are. There you are.
Being weird. I don't know.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. So, aside from Stranger Things, that was your first time?
Yeah. A couple of really good friends. Were nice to me about me being brand new and coming through Zonder was actually my first character, and so he started off as he started off with like just a really deep voice, and that was it. um, and I was still trying to figure out like how I was going to play him. At first, he was a ranger,
Yeah.
um, and then I decided to turn him into a monk, and I was thinking of going druid with him, but there's so many different things, and then I think monk was the easiest to figure out, so I went with monk.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, no, yeah, I really liked it. And then I left Toyota, um, but I knew David Benavides and Miguel, and so I actually joined their group,
Okay.
um, and had normal sessions with them, and started a campaign with them. It was nice, and I was able to figure out D&D a little more. But eventually, we just couldn't get together anymore. I wasn't able to go on the days that we needed to, so
Yeah.
I'd stopped for a while. Then met Sean, and then
Oh
met
yeah, and
you
then
through Sean, and then that's how
dum da da dum,
it
and then you
started.
want to join in our little shenanigans of crazy. Um, wow. So had you played? I mean, guess before that, did you have other games that you liked that were RPGs that kind of like pushed you in that direction?
I was I was
Or
always into. Uh, I think the first game that really opened my eyes to this style and this kind of world was Legend of Zelda.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
really big into Legend of Zelda, and I love the open world concept. And then I got into Skyrim. I think Skyrim was like what pushed me over the edge to try to find a game that was
Well,
more like it. Um,
that's very appropriate with Skyrim
yeah,
pushing you over the edge. I mean, it pushes a lot of people over the edge
pushed a lot of me over the edge.
into things.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, Skyrim's a great what's it called segue, I guess, into a lot of RPGs. Kind of, I guess, in a sense, in the sense of like it's not quite an RPG, I guess, in like a traditional way because you don't see like the little numbers that are floating around. And for the longest time, I'm not gonna lie, when I play RPGs, those are like the most annoying things. I'm like, okay, I get it. I hit it for 999 damage. That's
yeah.
great. It doesn't mean anything to me. Um, I didn't
I
really
think
understand that was had more of a basis in like tabletop RPGs where you have the
right.
damage dice or damage numbers and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I was just like, okay, it's just the mechanic that they use in RPGs in general. But I guess that is a nice, especially with Zelda. Zelda has that adventuring aspect, where and then Skyrim has more of the adventuring aspect with a little less go point A to point B and all that jazz because it does work differently.
Right. Um, now that I really think back to it, there was a there was a game that I would play with my sister and my cousin, and even my brother. We had these little stuffed animals, um, and we would use the stuffed animals as like these little fighting uh, characters, and they were more like action figures to us.
Yeah.
And each of them had some kind of like some kind of like power. So playing that game, we called it the S Team or Stripe Shadow and Sparky, and my character was a airbending tiger. My sister played a dog that could, um, and they're all anthropomorphic. Um,
Furry at a young age, got it.
yeah, but they all had like elemental abilities, and they'd fight the bad guys. And I was the oldest one, so I came up with all the little tiny adventures that we went on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might have been like the beginning of it all, realizing that I had been playing a version of D&D this
Of
whole
that,
time.
this like the storytelling aspect or
Yeah,
cooperative storytelling
storytelling.
aspect.
Even the combat was, I created a combat system and these little cards that were like, okay, well, you deal this much damage with this attack, but you can only do it so many times.
Yeah.
And that was at age like 8 and to 12 even. I think I even played with my sister. She had asked me at like 15, like, okay, fine. It was fun. I really miss it, and there's still like a whole lore behind the S team that that I miss, and I think my sister and I, that's like a really fond memory of a role playing game that we had started.
Right.
Hmm.
Nice. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Um, so let's see what. So we know you're into D&D. We do have. I do have some questions, and I'm not sure. So I have Miguel who's asking where did the name come from. I don't know if it's the name for Game of Santos particularly, or if
Oh
it's for
yeah,
Sonder particularly. If it's for Game of Santos, then
well,
Game of Santos because it was a play on words on Game of Thrones. Um, and then
where you live?
yeah, also it was off one of the side streets,
Yeah,
so we
and we don't
just
want to give away your address or anything,
no no. Well, there's a lot of Santos streets. It's
but not
fine.
even that. Yeah, not even that's the actual thing.
Um, but yeah, so um, let's see. All right, so that's where godly. I mean, no, that's where Santos, the game of Santos came from.
Santos came from.
Um, Marcus was asking, uh, what do what do we do? What do you do as a monk? Like, how did that get started? Oh, you said that it was like one of the easier classes to start playing, right?
It was, yeah. Um,
And
and I'd seen on looking up like first time player, like what's the easiest class, or like how do I get into D&D? And they said that the monk is supposed to be one of the easier classes to play, to really get into.
yeah,
Um,
well, yeah, and they're like crazy fast and they move all over the place, and
mhm. So the
that's
kind of monk that I play is a Kensei monk. So this is a master of weaponry, specific weapons that the monk chooses, and then is able to combine what is called ki. So like the energy within
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the monk's body. It's this mystical energy that's able to fuse with the weapon and create more powerful attacks or um, break magical barriers type of thing. So really interesting, and that drew me to that class specifically because I like that concept.
The and now that you have been in this game for a while, your character has come quite a way. So, like, tell me a little bit about Sonder in like without spoilers and as like concisely as possible, which is a little hard to do. I think with when you start doing D&D characters, is like they have so much depth to them that it's hard to be like pick out a specific narrative. But in like the elevator pitch style, like tell us about Sonder.
Sonder started out as a monk of the Order of the Platinum Dragon. So,
Okay.
um, following Bahamut, the dragon god, the good dragon god of justice.
Right.
Um, he went through this horrible experience when he was young that led him to being a orphan monk. Um, as he grew up, eventually he went on to a mission to spread the good word of Bahamut.
Yeah.
Um,
As all monks do.
finding out that his monastery, while he was gone, was attacked by the opposing side of uh, of Bahamut, Tiamat's um, followers and her kind of army and clan cult type thing.
Yeah.
So they came in and destroyed the monastery completely, and what it seems like they had killed everyone who was there. Um, and so the queen of the land there in Carador had to send out a letter to him, letting him know what had happened. And so he's decided to spend uh, the rest of his life trying to not only restore the order, but figure out who it was that did this and seek revenge and avenge his brethren, his sisters, and his masters.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. And so that's thus set him off on a whirlwind adventure in where he met a bunch of other crazy
All these other
individuals.
quirky characters.
Oof. We were still kind of fresh from the starter's guide at the time, so we were still kind of getting. Well, I
These
think
were
by
still
that
like
point, yeah,
early,
by that
yeah.
point we kind of knew what was happening, but also didn't know what was happening because their story was starting to um, take a wild turn. Actually, we were still in the starter's guide, weren't we?
Yep,
Yeah,
you were in Phandalin still.
yeah, because
I think
you
you
were.
guys had just finished the Orc Cave thing, or the
Yeah.
Goblin King
It
Cave
was
or
like the
something.
orc.
Goblin
No,
King
it
Cave.
was like yes, that was like the. I was like a hideout that
Yeah, and
the
there
the
was the.
goblins had. It was a castle, a ruined castle they had left,
Mhm.
and found
Oh
you
yeah.
along the way back. Uh, yeah, that was quite some time ago, quite some
Yeah.
time ago. What other little interests do you have? I know you are into music. What other little things would you consider yourself to have geeky ass interests in?
Hmm. I play a lot of. I play a lot of video games. Lately, not so much because I've been busy with other things.
Yeah.
But I am really into Minecraft, and I think that's another thing. I really like the open world concept games
Mm.
and
Yeah, and
being able
like
to
being able to
create
like
and do whatever you
build
want.
your own world.
Right? Yeah. Um, I think that's why when I found D&D, it was like this is exactly what I've wanted my entire life
Yeah,
in video gaming. um, but
just kind of
besides
being
that,
able to do whatever.
I've not really like I've never been into Magic or RuneScape or World of Warcraft. I never got into that. Um, I played Club Penguin.
Tell me about Club Penguin because I have seen and heard so much about this thing, this phenomenon, but I never actually played it. What was the was there an end goal to play Club Penguin, or was
No,
this like
it's just
basically
you just do
chat
what you
room where everybody is just penguins?
yeah you make friends. You try to find cool clothes, just look cool, and then I don't know you own a house. You have to get coins from doing jobs, and
Okay,
then you build your house and your clothing and your couple, your little pet. Um, and there's certain things that happen. Like there was this evil polar bear that comes out, and
yeah,
then you have to defeat him. And like there's clues that lead up to certain things that happen. So there's a
certain like
chronological.
in-world events kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. There's in world events, and
Because
um,
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, most of
it's
the
fun
clips and
now, but
pieces that I saw were all like people acting all sorts of like
oh
bananas
yeah,
on that. So it was just like, is this
it's
just
a
like
it's a
because
meme
there
now.
came a time and this was way back in the day when I was young, and like the internet was starting to be a thing. I guess more so than it is now. Um, there was like that aspect of where they would be able to talk to each other, and then it looked like do like they had the little rooms and stuff. There was like was it Perfect World, or there was like other simulations that were
Right.
things where like you could have this like avatar for yourself, and it made you could like have like a little world, a little house or some sort of
See,
thing, almost like a
I've
Sims kind of
always
setup. Was it kind of like
right.
that?
I've always yeah. It's like that. I've always been into games like that. Besides Club Penguin, Spire World
I
was
feel
a
like I've heard of
game,
that. I
and
feel like I've heard of that.
it was very like Studio Ghibli looking, which
Yeah.
attracted me. And then you could, you had your avatar and your space that you could have your furniture and whatnot.
Right, right, right.
And then there's also Maple Story, which is a little different,
See, I
but
remember Maple Story was a thing that I remember.
yeah, I I loved
Kind
it,
of.
but my computer back in 2008 did not like it. So
Yeah. Well, I don't think most of our computers back at that time
right,
had any sort of like capability that they do now. Um, but yeah,
that's why I was
that was a bit of an era, that for sure, for sure.
I think that might have also been what got me into role playing. And then Minecraft servers, like the servers on PC,
Yeah.
um, there's so many different things you can do with that. And I've always really been into the MMO RPG type of servers,
Okay.
um, where they have this lore, this world, a lot like D&D does. Um, and you play out your character. You have your class, you have your race, um, the class system, and like how you were born and how it affects how you grew up and what societies you're allowed in. Because you can either be like really poor or
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I see what you
choose to
mean.
be, upper class. But that's amazing, and that's one of the ones that I do play. There is Massive Craft, but I haven't been on it in a while, so the
I'm
world's
sure.
probably like
Well, and I
restarted.
think from what I heard, not DD, Minecraft is having a new. They have like a new update or something that's coming
Yeah,
out.
Minecraft
Minecraft
Dungeons
Dungeons
on
is supposed
Wednesday.
to come out tomorrow,
It's
or
supposed
yeah,
to be like
Wednesday.
Diablo.
I don't know what day it is, but yeah, I had seen that. That's something that was popping up soon. Someone
It was
mentioned that, and I
interesting.
was like, Minecraft has come a long way from
And they're
its
also
from
coming
its.
out with I think it was about to happen right when COVID happened, but it's like basically Pokemon Go for Minecraft. So you can run around with your
Oh
with your
Jesus!
phone and see all the different creations that people have made around the city.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Really cool. So that was interesting, but it's like
I feel
Minecraft
like that would be
Earth.
that's
That's what it's
tough.
called.
That's tough, but I'm sure it's doable
Yeah.
somehow. I mean, they did the same thing with Harry Potter, and there was a couple other.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park did another like Pokemon Go style thing. I mean, this all stemmed from. Did you ever play a game called Ingress way back before all
I
that
heard about that.
started?
And Pokemon Go is based off of Ingress.
Yeah, same
I
company.
haven't seen that
And
before, but it
basically,
sounds interesting.
Ingress was, I mean, Pokemon Go was basically a reskin of, and all those games, they all basically
Yeah.
operate off the same, I feel like, information, which is kind of creepy because they all have, like, all those gyms and stuff that are in Pokemon Go are actually in, like, Ingress and stuff as, like, monuments or things that you go to check into and you can use to protect. So, the way Ingress, did you ever play Ingress?
I never played it.
Okay, so the way this works, and it's worldwide, just like Pokemon Go, because it's the same thing. Um, so you have, so where in Pokemon Go has all the gyms, right? So in Ingress, you have two colors. You have blue and you have green, and so you choose which team you're on, and so you go and you like check in at one of these gyms or these places, and then if it's free, you get to like claim it for your team, and then you have to go to another spot and claim that one, and you basically try and connect or you link these together to create like a color
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. And that's
um,
like
so it's like if you did like this and you went to all four spots and then you did this, it
the
would
meta.
completely cover that color in that for your team. And so you can actually, it has like a map where it shows the whole world, and some people have these like grids that last, they go like cross continents, and it's ridiculous. um, and it's was probably one of those like first like walk around kind of games that I ever played. It was insane, like just
I'm
insane.
surprised I didn't know about that. See, I would have been interested in something like that, but I
I mean, it's still running. It has its own. It has an anime out on Netflix now too. That's supposedly run because there was a storyline was that like Blue, if I remember correctly, Blue you were part of like a rebel alliance, and then the Green you had they were aliens basically and humans that were working together. So the whole Ingress system was something along those lines.
see.
And so if you chose Green, then you could that was your storyline, was like you were working with the aliens to advance human technology, and Blue were like, no, we're rebels and we're not gonna let
Yeah.
no alien take over our land. Like that's what they did. It was and so they did that with gyms, but you don't have to do the whole like checking into places and stuff. But yeah, Ingress, you should check that out. They did an update to it too, so the graphics are a little better. It doesn't look so much like you're playing a game off of Tron or something along those lines.
Right.
Well, we have now our second person that we're gonna bring on to join our little soiree. You have Marcus aka Kindred. Hopefully, let's see if he's there. Oh yes, of course, Marcus. Of course you would.
Yep.
Amazing, amazing choice of outfit there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I
Yeah,
own a castle now. I have to look the part.
of course you own the castle, so why not? Why not? Um, so what started what started your trip into like D&D and stuff?
I've always been into like the whole fantasy role playing games, and D&D was one I'd always been curious about, but
Yeah,
could never find a group of people either willing to teach or willing to like learn together.
learn. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's just something that I've always known about,
yeah.
interested in, but it just never happened. And then we finally like put our foot down and got a group together and all learned at the same time.
Yeah, so okay, so that was I didn't know if that was like if that had literally been um your first time, but so that was your first introduction. Aw, that's so special. Um yeah, no, because we definitely had no idea what we were doing at the beginning. I had no idea what I was
Yeah,
the
I just remember
concept of
like
what I was doing.
the simplest things took us forever to like go through. We had to look and read everything.
Well, I mean, and I had kind of had the idea that that was what was going to happen. Like, I was,
But I enjoyed that too because it like everyone was on the level
everyone's on the
playing
same,
field.
yeah.
Like we were all
We're starting, and then we also were all on the same page because we had all had been there and discussed or talked about it from the beginning. Um, but before this, so you knew that you would always wanted to get into D&D and stuff. What other like? I know you like League of Legends, right?
Mhm.
And Magic the Gathering. Um,
Yep.
were those kind of like quasi inspirations to get started on D&D, or was that something else?
It's always been there. Like I always any chance I get to play like a magic user is always fun in my head.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I used to play like World of Warcraft, Magic, Maple Story as well.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. So yeah, we had just talked about that with Josh a second ago. I remember going to like the when we didn't have the computer at home, we went to the library to play on the computer, and like half the kids that were on the computers at the library on the internet were playing like either Maple Story or they would be playing what was the other one? RuneScape. Like everybody was on RuneScape, and my brother would play RuneScape forever. Nice. Had you been playing Magic for a while then?
yeah, I learned when I was probably like in junior high,
Okay.
and then kind of off and on throughout the years, just depending on whether or not I had friends to play with. So there was like a long gap where I didn't play, and then when I moved to San Antonio back in 2008, uh, not too long after, I met someone who played Magic, and so we kind of got together, and that kind of re-sparked it. So I kind of like played it at a certain phase, and then skipped a whole bunch of like sets, and then came back in at like something completely different, and it was fun with my friend that we would play. Uh, we didn't necessarily like doing tournament style, like Friday
Yeah.
Night Magics.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But what we did enjoy is we would get an idea for a theme, and we would make a deck for that, and then we would like battle each other out. So we had like our prize, our shining jewels that we would always go against each other with, and then we would always kind of like play off of each other and like, well, I'm going to build a deck around this concept, and so we would like go through and kind of tweak it and work it and kind of see how it goes. And sometimes they were absolute shit, but they were fun to play, and then other times they were actually pretty good and decent decks.
Nice. I started, well, I kind of dabbled a little bit in trying to learn how to play. It was a lot more simple and also more complicated than I thought it was. I had a like, and this is, I guess, it's like the same when it came to like learning Dungeons and Dragons. It was like, I had this preconceived notion as to what it was going to be like and how difficult it was going to be or how much math was going to be involved. And then upon actual playing it, I'm like, oh, okay, it's not that complicated. It was a little, but not like
It's a lot of
insanely.
information up front that is just it's actually really easy to digest once you start dissecting it and learn kind of what's what.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it takes a little bit of reading and getting used to what concepts work with what or whatever. But it, in the end, worked out really, really well. Or works out really, really well. Uh, we do have a question for you. It's often said that for D&D 5e, that wizard is the best spellcasting class. What's your reason for choosing the wizard and the wizard kindred in this particular instance?
Well, that's absolutely true. Uh,
As a wizard, I feel like you're obligated to say that.
uh, Going into it, knowing that we were creating our characters, I knew for sure I was going to be some sort of magic user. So then that began the long research process of what the different caster classes do what and how they do what, kind of like more or less how they work, what's their core
Yeah.
set. And after reading through everyone, I kind of determined that the wizard has the most free will with magic,
Okay.
and the wizard is the most diverse in freely being able to do so. Most of the other casters I saw were kind of limited in kind of like a niche lineage of how they progressed.
Right.
And afterwards, like after reading the wizard, it was just kind of like, you study and work your ass off, and you can make it however you want as long as you study.
Right. No, and I can attest as your DM that there is nothing that Kindred loves to do more than studying all the time and reading and learning things, which is great.
It's a joke within the campaign. We call it wizard stuff.
Wizard, wizard stuff. It's time for wizard stuff.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about Kindred. Where he came from, or what inspired you further to bring Kindred to life.
So essentially, Kindred is me in a magic setting. Uh, he's a smartass and a know-it-all, or thinks he's a know-it-all. Uh, and I knew going into it, especially with him being a wizard and wanting to be studious, that I set him up to be the know-it-all.
Right.
And then kind of having a certain idea for it, and then as the campaign kind of progressed, kind of like altering him to benefit the group more or less.
Right.
So I really do have him set up as a know-it-all. So Kindred is an elf. Well, I started as an elf. Long story.
Yeah.
And I'm probably the oldest member in the campaign, being about 220-ish years, give or take some.
Yeah. Somewhere around.
And so pretty much he spent the majority of that time in universities and libraries and things that would be equivalent to that in the D&D setting,
Right.
just studying everything he could get his hands on. He loved doing so. He's just naturally curious about wanting to learn how things work and why they work. And then that kind of plays into more of his backstory about how he wants to learn everything because he has no past.
Right.
Or at least he can't recall it.
Right. Nice. And thus the adventuring began as you started to learn your way across the realms, and you eventually came in contact with our little group, or the group that you are now currently in, and the crazy shenanigans that have come since then. What other little, do you have any other sort of inspirations that, because I feel like, and this is something that I've heard a lot, is that people who their first characters basically themselves mirrored somehow into this fantasy setting. Were there any other inspirations for him along the way that you kind of took little bits and pieces?
Well, knowing that the wizard has kind of the most free will and how they they acquire their power by studying. That sparked great interest to me because I like learning about the roles in general.
Yeah.
And then once I get a foundation for the roles, I like building on top of that, as you know very well. So I like creating my own spells or my own gimmicks or abilities and things like that. And this goes back to like what I said with like wizard stuff. I'm always like bouncing it back and forth with you, different ideas, different things and concepts, and making sure everything's balanced. And because it's easy to just, as a wizard, I want to create this spell that just does all this stuff, but keeping things balanced in a certain perspective is fun and tricky about it.
Yeah, I would imagine, because it's one of those things where you have to kind of think like your character would, without like thinking like it's a game and trying to. I think that's one of probably the hardest aspects to me of playing, is trying to get your own mind out of it and apply it in a sense of, this is how said character would behave, and not how me thinking of it as a game, how I would do it. You know what I mean? Yeah, so definitely a little trickier there. In that aspect. As far as like any other, like, did you ever play any of the other classic RPGs that everyone seems to have come in on, or did you have any favorites along those lines?
I did grow up playing Final Fantasy, loving that.
Did you have a particular favorite?
Of course, Vivi and Lulu.
The Black Mages.
Mm-hmm.
So between 10 and, what was it, 9? That's 9, right? Vivi's in
Yes.
9. So between those two, do you have a particular favorite of one of the Final Fantasies?
No.
Or do you
really,
like them equally?
I like them equally for different things. It's weird.
Like
what? I like Vivi, his inquisitive, like naive innocence about him, and Lulu is just, I would love to have brunch with her. Like, we would just hit it off.
Strong, independent woman who wore a lot of belts.
If I ever need a belt, yeah.
Yes, right. I feel like that. I mean, as a I wouldn't even say a dabbler in cosplay, but as someone who appreciates cosplay, that is one of the things that I always thought was interesting. Is like, to make her dress, you just really need to buy a lot of belts, kind of. I mean, at least a couple to make that front. I think it was like the front section that looked like it was all belts or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Oof, those were some interesting character design choices in 10. Was it Titus?
Yeah, Titus.
His one capri pant, one short that he has.
His like wannabe Fubu looking jacket.
Yeah. Who else was in there? I had Waka with the large orange hair.
Orin
with who had the
Riku.
like broken arm, but not really. It just like rested in his thing. Oh yes, Riku. It
was like a little tech mage.
Tech mage with the Daisy Dukes.
Mm-hmm.
There's always got to be one. I feel like ever since Tifa, there's always got to be one at least. Character with ridiculously short shorts or something. Especially because she was
like
also
some sort of like leotard.
Right. Wasn't she kind of like a thief class, wasn't she?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Those are some memories. I think Final Fantasy X was actually the first game that I actually fully completed from beginning to end. I have that problem where it's like I get 80 to 90% of the way through a game, and then I'm like, get distracted with another one, and then move on to the next, and it just is a horrible cycle that repeats until I have all these games. So I was like, oh yeah, I almost finished that one once so many years ago, but now I'm like, I'm so lost. If I go back, I'm not gonna know what's happening, how to play it, or anything like that. Nice. So for people who are learning to play, what suggestions do you have for their
reading is fundamental?
Well, this is true. Reading is kind of very important for this game.
Just reading things, interpreting them, and just asking your group. Like, we've actually had a situation here recently where I read roles and interpreted them one way, and I brought it to the group, and they completely interpreted it a different way. So going with the DM's rolling, just to get clarification, because sometimes like just the
How
way
you
things are worded
understand,
can.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's one of the tricky things I would say when it comes to this game is that they word things in a very loose way so that it's kind of up to the individual,
You
I
can tell
guess.
they want to sponsor creativeness, but at the same time still keep it set within its boundaries.
Right. So that it's not uh, abused or whatever, or, mishandled, I guess is a better word, not necessarily abused. Awesome. So currently in our situation, we have Sonder and Kindred as they are attempting to pacify a overwhelming force of evil wizards and necromancers. Um, what are some of the things that you are looking forward to trying to do soon, without like getting spoilerish?
That moment where the
Or
party's going to just be wondering, like, what do we do? And then, like, with just a simple snap of my fingers, like, I
can change.
completely switch the situation around, and just everyone is just like, what happened?
And along that vein, like, do you have a favorite moment so far from this campaign, from the campaign so far, that you're like has really stood out in your mind of like, yes, this is my moment?
I do, and it's when Pigag and I, pretty much like Ocean's 12 did, all the way down like 3 floors and stories to like behind enemy territory, pretending to like be the enemy.
Else. Yeah.
And once we get there, and then the fight does ensue, and I played the part well enough that they think I'm one of them, and then I see him like going to cast spells, and
yeah,
I don't even remember what the spell was at the time, but just sitting there like chilling, and then just watching him do that, and just like snapping my fingers and totally fucking a spell up and counterspelling it.
Oh yeah,
and then just the way you role played his reaction, like just looking at me like,
completely,
why would you do this?
Completely flabbergasted.
And then doing the exact same thing the next round, like back to back, and he's just like, what's going on?
Frustration. Well, that was part. Here's, I'll let you in on a little secret. That was partially me acting as frustrated. That was also me just being frustrated,
not remembering that I could do that.
Exactly. I was like, so that came from a very natural place in my heart where I was just like, no. But that's. I mean, on the one hand, it's one of those things where it's like you want to make it challenging, but you also enjoy I also enjoy the being circumvented in that aspect of just like, surprise, like I'm gonna turn the tables on you. Those have been some, I think, and I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so this was one moment that had popped up a while ago, and this was bringing in one of the NPCs, Carp, who has turned into a big deal. But early on in his life, when he was just a boy and kind of struggling with his identity and not knowing like who he could trust or what to do, having been told most of his life to kind of like keep himself hidden. My favorite moment, I mean, I've had a couple of really awesome moments. Just like, this is so amazing, this is so great. You guys have done like an amazing job. But I think one of my favorite, or one of the moments that I'll like remember always was, I'm not gonna lie. So you, and then at the time we had Sean playing with us as the character Tempest, and I was like, these two are gonna be the most to resist having a kid tag along for shenanigans, because I was just who I had imagined. I'm just like, I could just imagine Kindred just being like, ugh, children. Ugh. And like Tempest the same way. He would just did not. You two became ultimate super dads so fast. I was not expecting that at all. And even like with Galil and like his tie to the character, I was surprised at how like quickly you adapted and like took to it. And there was something that you had this like little private one-on-one with Carp, and it struck me in a way that I was not expecting, because you had said something along the lines of like, never be ashamed of who you are, like always be proud of who you are, don't be ashamed of hiding, or don't be ashamed and don't hide your magic. You are a magical person, you are special on the inside, and you will always have people around you that will like stand up for you and protect you because of that. And no lie, that is the closest to breaking down in tears I have ever been in my entire life. I had never like it's so funny because you get into these like role playing scenarios where you're not thinking about how it's coming across to the other person, because you're just like, oh, I'm just playing this character. But then you hit like certain nerves like that where it's not like, I had like PTSD about it or anything, but it was something that I don't think a lot of people get told that, in a face-to-face sort of way. And so it was insane. It was so good. It was so good, because that was something that, it's like, I am definitely feel like I've come a long way being more accepting of who I am and stuff like that over the years. But that was something that I don't think anybody has directly said to me in that sort of like mentor to mentee sort of way. And it was just like, wow, this is the power of Dungeons and Dragons. Like, you just have
the power of the wizard.
Yeah, sure. It was just there are moments like that where it's just like, no, this is great. You can't find another experience like this, because you get to talk about fantasy things, but at the same time, somehow, somewhere along the way, like real life
Things
stuff comes
relatable.
up. Yes, things become relatable. Especially, I think, when we put so much of ourselves into our characters, there's a certain underlying current of these kind of words are being, told in my direction, and then, it's bananas. I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, let's see. I think next we have another person coming up, and then we'll bring the three of you back around. Let's see if we have Adam, if he is functional and in the moment. There we go. Yes.
Fun.
Welcome to the little shenanigans you've been watching this whole time, right?
Yeah.
Paying attention and taking notes. Right.
I've been multitasking.
As you do, as one does. Nice. Well, okay, so was this your first time playing D&D? Was that when we started, or had you like dabbled in it before?
Nope. When we started was my very first time.
And had you what was this kind of like a, oh, to hell with it, I'm just gonna try this game out and see how it goes, or had you kind of always had like a little bit of, well, if the opportunity comes up, I want to play kind of thing?
I've only heard about D&D from like movies and all that, TV shows.
Right.
Never really interested.
Never really, yeah. Well, I'm not gonna lie. Especially when you have like, when you see it on like Stranger Things and whatever, or movies and stuff, and they've always painted in a very, I want to say it's not necessarily like a negative light, but it's always like, oh, these nerds sitting around a table or in a basement and they're playing games, and like, it doesn't really touch on anything of like what the actual game is like, because they just kind of do like that superficial, I cast fireball kind of thing, kind of aspect to it. But even before this, you still have played enough games, I would imagine that.
Oh God, yes. Where do I begin?
I saw earlier you had mentioned when we were talking about Club Penguin, um, back in the early days of the internet and some of the other games like I keep wanting to say Runeterra, but it's not Runeterra, it's RuneScape.
RuneScape.
Yes, and what you had, I saw you had mentioned one. What was it called? Whoville or something?
Oh god, yeah. Whoville was like a little chat room for that me and my friends would always go on. You're like a potato floating head that you customize.
So not based on like Dr. Seuss or anything. It was more of just. But you knew what I was talking about, right? When like there was a couple of things that came out all around the same time where you created like these little avatars for yourself, and they were basically like chat rooms, but they also had like, I guess kind of like Penguin, let's call it Club Penguin, or like Maple Story or things like that, where you had kind of a story that you would do, but at the same time it was more of a like social gathering, and then you
not social distancing.
Yeah, not social distancing. Exactly. Well, I guess technically, it was a version of social distancing, and we were on the internet making houses so that we could gather on. Do you remember? Did you ever play on the? Did you get the PlayStation 3? Whenever it first came out.
PS2, then PS4.
Oh, okay. So PS3, whenever it came out, not long after it came out, they did a like social
chat room.
It was kind of like a chat room. You would make yourself like a little avatar that was called PlayStation Home, and you have like these little houses that you could decorate and have, and you could throw like virtual parties, and then they started
like Sims,
kind of like Sims, kind of a lot like Sims, because eventually they added like games, like competitive games that you could all like. They had like a tank simulator almost, where you would go in and they would have like this giant scoreboard, and you'd hang out at these plazas, and there'd be people chatting with like, you know, wolf heads or, you know, tails or bunny ears or whatever. It was just kind of one of those precursor to Ready Player One style. You know, everyone's just hanging out.
God.
Yeah. So I think Club Penguin was like the starter, and then it just kind of moved on up. So there was yes, you remember PlayStation Home. There's a plaza base with popular games in PlayStation. Yep. So when you started playing D&D and you were like looking into making your first character, where did the inspiration for Galil come from?
Well,
do you remember?
Galil
That was so long ago.
I wanted to be a ranger first off.
Yeah. And this, I'm sure, has
no matter what.
This had nothing to do for your love for Power Rangers, I'm sure. I somehow knew.
Where do I begin?
You definitely don't like Power Rangers. You definitely have never.
Definitely don't. I have never seen all 20-something seasons already.
No. Definitely not. Definitely not a fan at all. So you wanted to make yourself a ranger, got that.
Basically.
And then what about the rest of it? Is it just kind of one of those like it came along the way, or did you have a specific inspiration?
The subclass that I chose for him.
The Beastmaster.
The Beastmaster. Mm-hmm. I end up using my love for animals to also be in the game.
Yeah.
That's why
that translated.
Yeah, that's why when Oreo died, Galil was heartbroken.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us about Oreo's death?
Oh God. Jesus Christ. Oh God. You using a 6th level spell when we just turned level 5, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely
when it was only me and Kindred at the time.
Oh yes, this is true.
Against a big bad known as Lady Deathbell, with I think 4 or 5 things that like eat spells as well.
Yeah. Yep. That was definitely a good time. And I've told you this like so many times. I had no idea that Oreo was there. I totally forgot that Oreo was there until I was doing like figuring out the radius that the spell was going to like, take out a certain area, and I was like, oh well, this will help clear the room. That was honestly my thought process at the time. Was like, oh, this will like clear the room of like some of the NPCs,
clear the room, all right.
some of the NPCs that were there, and I was like, it's not going to do that much damage, knowing how like healthy you guys were at the time. I was like, they're going to be fine. Like, this is not going to be that big of a deal. And then
I was on
like,
my last death save too.
What large what a large space 60-foot radius is. I now realize. And then it was a sphere. It wasn't just like this is a room, this goes like above and around. And then I was like, wait, oh no. And then rolling damage and seeing how much was coming from that. That was
I mean, I was safe because Galil is actually a celestial.
Yes,
so
and so the next
that damage.
Yeah.
But
not so much on your
not
so much on your little Petsy. So I do. No. I mean, I do apologize for that again. I apologize.
I mean, it's the game.
It's not how the game goes. And yeah. I mean, and to be fair, I think it brought that whole those whole couple of sessions where we had around that point brought in probably some of the most dramatic changes to the party dynamic that we've hadn't had in up to that point. Like, there was Oreo and then Galil doing this little funeral kind of situation by a tree for him. That was really moving. And then we had Kindred, who had tried to escape the situation and then wound up getting cornered and killed. So there was a lot that happened, in that short amount of time, where everybody had gotten very comfortable at this place, and it just kind of quickly spun out of control. So it kind of was I feel like it had played almost like a wake-up call in the how dangerous situations and how quickly dangerous situations can quickly spiral out of control, both from a player's
when
perspective.
You have a plan A escape route, always have a plan B, because
B,
the DM will mess it up.
B, C, D, E. No, and it works both ways, sir. Because sometimes, as a GM, I will have a plan A and B, thinking that that's all I need, and then you guys come in through left field, and all of a sudden it's pure madness, and I'm like, what? Where did you come up with this idea? Or you'll have
that's
a couple of great ideas, and then the dice rolls totally turn good plans up on their head, and so improvisation
or sometimes kill us.
Yeah, it's just the improv suddenly kicks in. You're like, okay, what can I do in this situation to not die, or something along those lines. So now that we are entering into the second phase of this campaign, what are some of your hopes for Galil? What kind of
Galil?
Yeah.
Honestly, to show Carp that he found his way again.
Yes. So we had that's a good one, because, and that's something interesting that in the role play sense, because we were talking earlier about how the each character has a little bit of ourselves in there and stuff like that. And I will say that sometimes Galil comes off as a very
stubborn.
Well, stubborn, yes, but I'm thinking I'm thinking more of he's just very straightforward. There's not a lot of he doesn't BS around. He just does and goes and does what he needs to do. And so because of that, he's not one for small talk, basically, either. He's just yes, no, whatever. That's
get to the point.
Get to the point. Exactly, get to the point.
That's exactly.
And so there's been a couple of occasions lately where some RP moments came up that I was not prepared for at all. Galil's prayer to Saloon was one that I was not prepared for. That totally threw me up for a loop, and I probably for the couple other times in this campaign almost lost it myself, because I was just the feels. It was super great. And then shortly thereafter, in another scene where you are with Carp, who's currently in a Sleeping Beauty-esque, coma of sleep, and like the words of that you said to him then were like also like seems to have come from left field, but just kind of goes to show you that sometimes even though you play a character, and not I'm like saying you particular, but like anybody, if they play a character who's like mostly quiet, very quiet person, or doesn't always have to be the center of attention, that doesn't mean that there's not deep waters that are going through there that on the right time can like surface. And I think that's one of the cool aspects of this game is that you can bring in different kinds of people and the dynamic works. Not everybody has to be a level 10 actor in improv with voices and doing all that kind of fancy craziness to enjoy the game and to make it work for them, and to bring a sort of dynamic to certain scenes where like the quiet person, we have friends who are quiet people, and there have friends who talk the whole time and have to be the center of attention. So it's like there's always like that balance, and that's what I think was one great aspect of this game, is that it doesn't have to be just for one type of person or just for another, is that it can bring like a whole bunch of different people around to a certain thing. So I guess then it's fair enough to say that you've had a somewhat positive experience to playing D&D then.
So far, for now. I mean, it's still the first game.
It's been great. No, it's been great. What are you talking about? The whole time it's been great. There's been no badness, bad things.
No TPK yet. No TPK.
Yeah, no TPKs. I'm trying to think yet. Exactly. I'm trying to think what else. So what other games, like, growing up, did you play a lot of?
Oh, God. Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, Legend Dragoon.
So going to Final Fantasy real quick, what did you have a favorite that you liked to play?
I mean, my cousins got me into Final Fantasy VII.
Okay.
So I played the versions that came off that one, like Dirge of Cerberus or
Okay, I remember that. I think I played was Dirge of Cerberus. That was the one where you played as Vincent, right?
Yeah, with the guns.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I remember a little bit about that. I didn't play a whole lot. The only one I played from 7 was I want to say, is it Crisis Core?
PSP?
Yes.
Yes.
I think I started that one because I was like, oh, it's a prequel, so this will work out nicely.
It gives you a lot of backlight into the entire story.
So I didn't get to finish that because unfortunately my PSP was lost, aka it was stolen at some point, and so
Starbucks.
It was during that time, but it wasn't then. Anyway, it was gone, and so I never wound up getting back into it again. But that is one that I had started to kind of enjoy. It was a very interesting storyline with Cloud, and then was it Zach or Zek or?
It's Zach.
Zach, okay.
Zach, Angeal, Genesis, Sephiroth.
I remember. Okay, Genesis rings a bell. That name rings a bell. I think I remember that person. But now, so have you played the remake yet?
Oh, just the demo so far.
Are you itching?
Yes.
I know. I can only imagine. The demo was actually a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to playing.
I played the demo at least 3 times. At least.
Did you try the different modes? Because apparently there's like they have a couple of different modes to play it in. They have like the more of the don't want to say like button smash, but the more action classic mode, and then they have another mode that they introduce or have in it as well to kind of like make it feel more, I guess, on the turn-based side. I think.
I mean, I just played it the regular way.
Just played the regular
classic, just see how it was.
Yeah. And impressed? You got it was everything that you wanted it to be so far.
Yes.
Now you just gotta actually do it. Well, that's exciting. I guess if Sonder and Kindred are still around, if you guys want to pop back in, if they're still there, they may not even be there. Oh, no, Kindred's there. Yeah, Kindred's
Oh.
there. And Sonder. Yay. So now we have the last of the Mohicans, as it were, of our current crew at the moment. Looking forward to our next set off in adventure to see where we are going or where the story is going next. Well, there was something I was trying to see. There was another question that had popped up, but I don't see where. I think I lost where it was. But yeah. So, any other questions you have for each other at this point?
How much gold do you have in your bags?
That is
least
a very
$2,000.
suspicious. That is a very suspicious
At
comment.
least $2,000. Diamonds, I have like 3.
I mean, y'all are away from the castle. I'm there at the castle in case shit goes down.
Right.
You
Of
need to know
course.
where to, like, put your
Currently, we're back
investments.
at the castle, though. Currently.
Oh, that's what it was. You, Kindred, you had said, what is nega? Oh, never mind. I just realized what you said and what that meant. Never mind. We're gonna pass right over that one.
Oh, yeah. Why don't you enlighten the audience?
Because you were talking about Whoville, and then I was like, Nega Grinder. I read Nega Gritter, and I was like, what is Nega Gritter? I've never heard of this game. Oh, Nega Grinder. Yes, basically, I would imagine. Well, see, that was the thing. It was like those chat room things at the time. I made like a lot of my first friends I made came from Yahoo Chat.
Friends.
Yes, friends,
ASL.
like regular friends, or AOL. Actually, it was like AOL
Wow.
Chat, Yahoo Chat. Yeah, that doesn't show my age. Because you could look them up by area. I think city. Sometimes certain cities had like chat rooms for that city. San Antonio didn't have a chat room at the time. I think I wound up chatting mostly with people. It was just like South Texas or like Texas, and I think it was mostly South Texas. So it just kind of was an expanded area. So I made a couple of friends in San Antonio and then a couple of friends in Houston. Those were my first internet buddies that I learned a lot from at the tender age of like 15 or so.
I have a question for Galil.
The what?
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Galil.
Oh, yeah.
At what point was it that you decided, as Galil, that you should go back to Saloon, go back to, rather than, switching who you were taking your power from and in that path that you were going down? What made him decide to go back to where he needed to be and apologize? And
Well,
White Cadillac that showed up.
basically, it's been on his mind ever since we were captured. But he didn't really know how
to go about it.
how to go about it. Even being the grandson of the deity. So he didn't want to like rush anything.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that was an interesting look into how it is difficult when you know what not, and not to say that Galil technically even made that much of a mistake. It was just like a deviation from the course that he had been on, and then to see like, oh, this is not the right fit or whatever. Like it's having consequences that you weren't expecting. But yeah, even in like real life, how that can be a very difficult thing to do is when you realize you've made a mistake somewhere along the way, and you're like, okay, how do I course correct this without making myself look like a fool or without, making things worse? And so, that's like it's situations like that where you're like, okay, how do I even go about doing stuff like this? Because that is something that I guess as a DM that I don't really have to consider or worry about as much, because since I'm not playing just one character, I don't have to really think so much about like character arc and how this person is growing or what they are doing or whatever. I have very minimal amount of having to worry about that.
Is that why you just have carp sleep all the time?
No, there's actually reasons for why that happens.
According to Galeo's Diva, same diff. He's going through a butterfly phase. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Metamorph.
He's going through a metamorphosis. See, his puberty is different from everybody else's. His voice
Yeah,
is.
You're rushing to everything.
You want to talk about a different puberty than other people?
So yes. So
This is true.
To catch
From a guy to a
go.
girl.
Yeah. So to give backstory on this, when Kindred died and was murdered, he wound up being reincarnated into a different body, and the random numbers that were involved in in making that happen brought him back from being you were a high elf before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
A male high elf.
male high elf to a female hobgoblin, and that was like
With spell slots determine her boob size.
yeah, spell slots determine boob size. It was one of those like I don't know how this is going to fly kind of thing. It's like, do I change it? Do I just like because it's like I want to stick
crazy.
as close to the dice as possible because when these random things, that's where the randomness of life happens is like through random chance. And so I was like,
and it's actually couldn't have been more perfect in its chaos, because especially in the campaign, there's like the wizards that have kind of like assaulted other countries, but they've teamed up with like hobgoblin armies. So we've run into random cities that are run by hobgoblin mobs and some cities that hate hobgoblins. So it makes for a very interesting dynamic.
yeah, and it was something that like you can't plan that sort of stuff. Like it just worked out so good. It could have been. I'm human. Yeah, it could have been a furball. It could have turned into a human. Just been like meh. But with this, it kind of brought out an interesting like ability that you have to now be able to either blend in or kind of hide to a certain extent. Depending on where what the situation is going, what is going on. Well, nice. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this little Geeks Are Us chat thing. Whatever. Looking forward to
get back to my castle.
Yes, to get back to the castle that you are that you are now flying.
Get back to my mining carp's house.
Yes. Everyone has their lives they are leading now. So yeah, looking forward to picking that up again tomorrow night and seeing what adventures start for the second half of this campaign. Well, guys, all of the things. You're right. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Yep.